Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And as we continue on with our subject about decision fatigue, guess what, folks? That's right. We're now in part 2. And as always, with us in the studio to help us explain this difficult decision-making process that happens in retirement, we have to my far end there Mr. Wes Walker and Mr. Trey Juergens. And of course, last week we had some technical difficulties. We're going to see if this works. So we want to bring in from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Ms. Heather Hughes. Let's get that drum roll. Well, good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Tony.
You ready to dive in today?
Let's go.
All right. So last week we covered a couple of items. And again, folks, you can watch past episodes of the Worry-Free Retirement and see what we were talking about last week on youtube.com. All that will be on there for you as well after we do this show. All right. Let's see. Mr. Trey Juergens, you put together a countless list of concerns and decision-making concerns. Now we're on number 3. Boy, this is right up our alley. Whether to purchase an annuity in retirement. So, Trey, obviously you work with a lot of people that are thinking about annuities. I send them down the hall to you. Why did this make the list?
Well, it's being pushed on baby boomers constantly. The amount of dinner seminars, educational workshops, all this, annuity sales have been record-breaking, I think, the last 3 years, year over year. So annuities are out there. It doesn't take a whole lot to be able to become licensed to sell an annuity product. Unfortunately, that means a lot of people are out there selling them without a whole lot of knowledge and zero planning around how to use them. So whether or not to buy an annuity is a huge decision someone as they approach retirement faces. And what we obviously know is there's not necessarily bad annuities, except when you have an annuity that you have no idea how to use. And we run into that, unfortunately, quite a bit.
And then, Heather, you've been with me a long time, close to 20 years. You've seen the evolution of this popularity of annuities. I know we won't go into too much, but yeah, 15 years ago, we were almost kind of maligned for selling these products. Now it looks like a Who concert, all the advisors trying to get into the annuity world right now. So speak to that.
It is so true. I think the industry is kindly caught up with our thinking, the power of annuities. And they also realize how much annuity premium has grown over the last 10, 15 years. And so they don't want to miss out on the money. You know, they make money off of your money. So that, I think, is the driving force behind it. But the real thing with annuities is they can be powerful tools in retirement. And we just, can't stress enough getting the right annuity and getting the plan behind it so you actually know how to use it.
Yeah, I talked with somebody yesterday in the Bowling Green. I called from Bowling Green, and an agent there in Bowling Green. I mean, it's a large sum of money they inherited. And the agent over the phone, I said, well, what'd they say? They're going to meet with you? He goes, well, no, they started talking about an annuity. And I thought, this is like this huge inheritance. And 10 minutes into the phone call, they're already recommending an annuity. I mean, it was kind of outlandish, but that's what's going on out there, isn't it?
It really is. It's really sad because I've seen, from beginning to end, so many people in retirement and how well it works for them when they have a plan behind it. And then they love the annuities because they know how they're going to work. They know how to utilize them, when to deploy them as far as income goes. And when you're just tossed an annuity and they say, see you later, thanks for the commission, they have no plan and no way of knowing the best way to utilize those funds.
And Wes, I know a lot of times when you're working in the investment world with our Charles Schwab platform and people call you, speak to that game plan and how you can quickly get on the same page when people are, sometimes they'll forget, well, I got this annuity, what am I supposed to do with it and when? And just how that game plan really helps us as a firm even track whether we should be spending out the annuity or taking money from Schwab.
Without the game plan, it'd be really hard to know which bucket to spend from. And, all this stuff is preconceived when maybe a person comes into an advisor's office, they think they'll follow a certain, set of rules or a plan, but that plan oftentimes isn't written down. It's not formalized. So if a new advisor comes into the office and talks with this client, they might recommend something totally different than what was initially prescribed. So when I'm looking at a game plan, I can easily see that, okay, we've decided to take some money from Charles Schwab prior to taking money from an annuity contract, and it's all just laid out there in black and white. Very easy to follow for both us and the client.
And I know, I'm always talking about what happens if something happens to me, but these game plans for me as the owner of the company and wondering, how much longer I can continue to do this or if God takes me home, but to know that I can leave the firm with these game plans so that you all as the fiduciaries can continue to advise. I mean, even you, Trey, think about that. How much comfort does that give you in knowing that, hey, even though Tony may have created the plan is the plan. We're going to follow the plan.
Yeah, it's so comforting knowing, and all the staff, not just the advisors, but
good point.
The income planning department, and when you do these income plan audits, the clients knowing that so many people have eyeballs on these plans, it is comforting to them knowing that, one, we're laying these plans out with a plan, of course, how to use these annuities, but also we're checking back annually for allocations, where they've been taking distributions from. Maybe they haven't taken any distributions and they need to probably start thinking about that. We have back office staff checking out these plans even before the advisors see them, letting us know what might be going on, when to reach out to our clients. It just gives us a lot of comfort in knowing that these plans are laid out and we're following them.
And there's a lot of misconceptions about annuities. And again, I think the warning shot over the bow, folks, is if you're thinking about annuities, been pitched an annuity, please get a second opinion from us. TJ was telling me that, I didn't realize this, now that we've got our new CRM, you may have heard this, Heather. He said that since we started writing annuities, we've personally written over 7,000 annuities. I didn't know the number was that big. So again, we're very experienced.
Very pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's crazy. And I won't name the firm here. I just downloaded this about fees being revealed. This was a big firm they don't do annuities. They're always bashing annuities. But it was interesting. They start talking about variable annuities fees. So speak to that, Heather, why we don't use variable annuities and why not all annuities come with fees, or high fees at least.
Right. So with variable annuities in particular, they tend to have higher fees than any other types of annuities. There's a few reasons for that. One, they're usually not an upfront commission. They're probably getting some sort of trail on that for the advisor. The underlying investment assets inside that annuity, those are called sub-accounts, all carry their own expense ratios. So kind of like a mutual fund that has a fee just for the mutual fund company to invest and take care of those assets, those sub-accounts are treated the same way. And then if you add on any additional riders, such as an income rider, an enhanced death benefit, additional liquidity riders, things like that, they all add on, plus the mortality expense as well. So oftentimes we can see variable annuities with fees up to 3.5%, even 4%. So, and that takes away from your bottom line.
And then, Trey, we've recently, we've introduced it. We didn't introduce it. Another insurance company did. But I'm very excited about this product. We don't use it all the time. But speak to this new product we have that has no surrender charges. It's a fee-based annuity, but why that's growing in popularity and why we're so excited about that product.
Yeah, so a RILA, registered index-linked annuity, it kind of finds this happy median between fixed indexed annuities and being in the market. It's fee-based. There's no commissions. But with that allows for no surrender charges. So you're able to get in, get out if you are not wanting to be in that product anymore. It's just a annual fee, just like a managed money account. But it does provide another option for people that maybe have been leery about how these annuity products work. That decision fatigue when you're hearing bonuses here and fixed rates here and RILA, MIGA, income annuities, mailbox money.
I'm getting tired. I'm sorry.
It's constant. And when you go visit a dinner seminar and they've got the best products in sliced bread, and then you come in and meet with us and all these decisions you have to make, unless you really truly understand how it meets your specific needs, you're going to be totally lost.
So again, moral of the story, I hate to beat a dead horse, but before you rush out and buy an annuity, at least get with somebody like us that's experienced in annuities. Please, folks. I mean, I think you'd be doing yourself a great service. All right, let's keep going here. So next on the agenda, as far as those tough decisions out there, basically how to replace, which is really all retirement is, folks, how to replace a paycheck, and here's the key word, I like how you put this, Trey, with reliable income. And we'll talk about my favorite... So we'll talk about mailbox money in just a second, but let's start off with a typical thing, and maybe Wes, you jump in here because this gets into investments. The traditional investment world, even before annuities came in, was you retired, you rolled your 401k over, and then you tried to live off dividends and interest, the 4% rule. Describe what people used to do before even annuities came out, and maybe spin downs and things like that we're doing now.
Sure. In real brief terms, all this originated with the advent of pensions back in the day. Long before 401ks, there were defined benefit plans, pensions that would pay out benefits every month for the rest of someone's life. Those were very costly to employers. They're very expensive to maintain. So employers moved away from pensions into 401k plans. That put the onus on the saver to figure out how they're going to use the money in retirement. The older way, or I guess the kind of the Wall Street way of using a 401k, is to take all the money and try to grow it best you can, and then withdraw a certain percentage of it each year. Oftentimes that was a 4% withdrawal rate, and you would just try to make sure that those withdrawals were enough to sustain you over time. There's risk with that though. Like we've talked about in previous episodes, there's what's called sequence of returns risk. If you catch some bad runs in the market, you might not reach that safe withdrawal, and you might have less money in retirement or run out of money in retirement. So that's what an annuity can come in and do for you. You could put part of the annuity or part of the 401k or your retirement savings to an annuity contract. That would guarantee the retirement income for you, and you still have some money left in the 401k or an IRA or a Schwab account in our case that you could draw from anytime if you need it. So it's all about planning.
And Heather, you want to address the split IRA concept? I think that's what Wes is alluding to, and how that's been a game changer for us and also our clients, to give them that use and flexibility and control we're always preaching about.
Yes, that's a vital part of our planning is what Wes mentioned earlier is we have the Schwab account. That's kind of our liquid bucket. So that's where we draw typically our first initial income for somebody in retirement. That allows the annuity to grow and defer and accumulate. The longer we leave an annuity, especially with an income rider, the higher that lifetime income guarantee is going to be. So we needed to have an outlet to get them beginning in retirement as far as an income flow. And then we transition over into an income annuity, typically, depending on the client, that would sustain them through retirement, along with Social Security or any other defined benefit that they may have.
Mailbox money!
And then it gets into the taxes. I know we have 2 tax certified people on staff, but Trey, I know you can speak to this, but people come in, and there's more and more seminars out there. So one of our clients went to a breakfast the other day. I guess people are having breakfast. I guess it's a little cheaper. I don't know, they went to Shoney's or something. But anyway, they went to a breakfast, and what was the tax-free, what was the deal we did? Remember, we even rented out some movie theaters to talk about that. The tax train is coming. Remember that, Heather? Were you here then?
Power of Zero. Yeah.
Power of Zero. Well, they had the book. So that's even coming back about how to get tax-free retirement, and people are going back. I guess everything just comes back around. They're going to use life insurance now. Folks, be really careful. I've used life insurance for years in retirement, talking about a dangerous tool to try to borrow from and tax-free retirement income, but it's a huge issue. So speak to how we try to deal with what I call that tax tumor, Trey, when somebody decides to hand over their 401k to us and our obligation moving forward.
Yeah, again, it really just comes down to planning. When someone goes willy-nilly into retirement with all this tax-infested 401k or IRA, as you would say, if they just start yanking money out as needed, they could really throw themselves into some tax trouble. And if they have a game plan that just spreads those distributions across a lifetime with, again, that guarantee that they won't run out with the income annuity, it shows them how they can use and enjoy this money and never run out. The biggest thing, again, with the live well, die broke philosophy, we have a lot of people that come in with quite a bit of retirement assets with absolute uncertainty on how to use it. So they just don't use it, and they never take distributions. Then their RMD hits at age 73 or whatever that'll be in the future, and they have to start yanking money out, and then they have to pay the taxes. And they could have been using and enjoying this money the whole time, but they just never had a plan.
Yeah, and Heather, I was going to say we had a death claim we had to service the other day, and I think you were in on this, Trey, but, family members, our clients, husband and wife, they were up in years, but both died pretty close together. It kind of even threw us off a little bit. Their adult children came in. I bet it took me 20 minutes to explain we had to get the RMD first from the death claim of the mother. Then we had to remind them they have to take RMDs, and then in 10 years they got to distribute this. I mean, that tax tumor, people don't realize when they die, they haven't dealt with the tax tumor, the kids get stuck with it. So speak to the importance of getting a plan in place to deal with that tax tumor, Heather.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, hear about the estate exemption and how high that is. And it's like, I won't have to pay taxes when mom and dad die. But if it's in a qualified account, it is most definitely taxable. If that is a concern for clients, especially if they have large qualified accounts like an IRA or a 401k, it is good for us to be able to give them a plan, like you said, Trey, to spend and enjoy some of that while they're living, but then also looking to the future. If they're really wanting to have a legacy gift for beneficiaries, we can look at other ways to get those funds to children or beneficiaries in a more tax efficient way. And that could be through Roth conversions. It could be through some sort of insurance trust. There's lots of options that we could have for them, but they need a plan and a way to know how they're going to use their funds for them to enjoy and use. And then also some estate and legacy planning to address those taxes.
Oh, good stuff. Now, speaking of reliable income, for the most part, everybody's eligible for Social Security to some degree. Wes, how many times does somebody come in here and one of their main questions, and then I love these YouTube videos. I mean, you're talking about Googling when to take Social Security. It's all over the board. But that's one of the main questions, right? When do I take Social Security? And how do we generally address that question?
Well, when do you think you're going to die? Yeah, if you can tell me what day you'll die on, I can tell you the perfect time to take Social Security. It's a bit of a guessing game, but obviously with any defined income stream, if you're going to live a long time, it would behoove you to defer that because the benefit is going to be higher if you wait to take it. If you're not going to live very long, well, go on and take it now because you'll have more years to get what you're going to get currently. So Social Security can be tricky. There are various strategies you can use to claim Social Security, whether it be on a ex-spouse. There's all kinds of different things you can do, but I would definitely do it all under the purview of someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to retirement planning.
And then back to that death claim we had another death claim in where the young lady had lost her husband, and I think she thought she knew what was going to happen to Social Security, but she really didn't. So the husband had passed away. The pension was a 50% survivor benefit, so she's going to lose half of his pension. And I think she thought she was going to get some sort of difference between the Social Security, and the math was not adding up. I said, ma'am, let me make this real plain. She was drawing about $22,000 a year in Social Security. You will lose your Social Security. You're just going to get his. He had a higher. So there's $22,000 a year out the door. And I think the pension in his half was maybe another $13,000. So basically, overnight, her income just dropped by $36,000 a year.
So, Tony, you mentioned all of that, and it's certainly a sad situation. Something that, we address a lot with our plans is, the question you pose to a lot of people, what is your spouse going to do if something happens to you, especially if they handle all the money? So you've got to have some contingencies built in there for a loss of income. Like you said, typically you're going to lose the lower of the Social Security income at the passing of a spouse. Additionally, like you mentioned with the pension. So it's good to have some backup funds or even an annuity in place, knowing that when that happens, because it will happen, that you've got an annuity back there to try to replace or at least supplement some of that lost income.
So Trey, in our closing moments here, as you like to say, in the essence of time, but what Heather's really referring to is my favorite subject, something we've trademarked, and that would be
mailbox money.
So really, how do we strategize and use this mailbox money? Let's go back to that example. Knowing with a plan that something could happen to the spouse, in this case, he did pass away, knowing in this case, we knew that she was going to lose income, how would we have positioned part of that 401k for just this very thing?
Yeah, we would have an income rider on one of these annuities that would be able to kick in should something happen to the spouse, that would be there kind of waiting in the wings and replace that lost Social Security. Actually, in addition to that, I had a client in who was anti-annuity. This was, they've been clients for 3 or 4 years at this point. She is just now approaching retirement. She's going to roll some additional funds over from her 401k. And all he came to me asking for, again, anti-annuity, was something that's going to be there for her, guaranteed lifetime income, should something happen to him. And I said, you know what would actually fit that need is an income annuity. And so I showed him an illustration, we talked over it, and he was totally sold. It was his idea, even though he was anti-annuity because of what he's heard from all these advisors out in the world. But it was such a perfect scenario for our saver clients.
And then finally, we probably better close out. Let me close out here. But finally, folks, let me say this. If you're looking for an advisor that is well experienced in both annuities and investments and planning, why don't you give us an opportunity to talk? Right now, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We're looking for people either retired, nearing retirement, generally over the age of 55, and have 401ks and IRAs of decent value that need tax planning included in that process. So if that's you, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Gentlemen, got to head out. Heather will be back next week for more on this. Special guest is going to be in the studio. We usually have a Bible segment, but this is even better. We've got a special guest in the studio that's going to talk about the tough decisions that Christians have to make, not only in retirement, but dealing with life and death matters. This is the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. We care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 3,500 happy clients and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Want to know what most advisors hate talking about? The fees they're going to charge you to manage your money. Not so with Tony Walker Financial. In fact, we are so confident in our services that we now have a posted video on our website called How We Get Paid. So before blindly handing over your money to just any advisor who won't tell you how they get paid, check out our video at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. So let me ask you a question. If we did go through another 15 years of flatlining stock market returns, would you be able to make it in retirement? Probably not. So the question is, why in the world would you be taking risk with your money at this stage of life, especially if you don't have to? Well, the only way to find out is to meet with somebody like me, Tony Walker, a trained retirement planning specialist who has literally orchestrated more than 5,000 written game plans. So to see if we might be a fit, here's all you have to do. Take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, where you and I will talk by phone, and if I think I can be of help, we're going to meet in person. That's right, the owner of the company, to sit down and lay out this free game plan for you to review. To schedule your free phone call, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Hey, internet not your thing? Feel free to call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Tony Walker here, and as we continue our trek down this whole idea of decision fatigue involving retirement, I thought we'd switch gears just a little bit and have with us in the studio today someone who knows a lot about decision fatigue, but not necessarily in the financial world, but in the world of human beings and the things we have to deal with as Christians and those who are even searching for truth and meaning in life. And that would be our very own Mr. Bob Russell. So good morning, Bob.
Hi, Tony. Good to be with you today. Thank you.
You're so welcome, man. I think the last time we got together, you actually spoke at our client dinner a couple of years ago. People are still talking about that.
Well, thank you. That was a really good night, and I enjoyed your people a lot.
Well, thank you so much. All right, so Derek's going to throw these up one by one. These are a little different than what we've been covering, Bob, in terms of retirement planning decisions. The first one, let me set the stage for this. Is that okay to take a minute on this one? This is dealing with adult children who might be dependent on their parents, whether it's financially or being at home a long time. I'll use my Uncle Eddie, who passed away last year. I was very close to Uncle Eddie. He was older than me, and I remember back in the early 70s, so I'm dating myself here. I was a young boy. Eddie was 22 or 23, still at home. Now, in the early 70s, this was very unusual, and people even kind of wondered, what in the world is he still doing at home? But we're seeing more and more of that. Any thoughts on that? And particularly, sometimes I think even parents feel a little guilty about what to do about a child who maybe is dependent in their later years.
Well, I think biblically, the goal of a parent is to train a child to be independent, to be able to function on their own. The goal of the parent is not to develop a lifelong buddy or somebody who's going to make them feel better. But the goal of the parent is to say, okay, I'm going to train this child to be able to function financially and spiritually on their own. And so there does come a time when the child is supposed to leave the home. A mother bear, I can't remember how long, raises the cubs, but I think 2 years. And then she chases them up a tree, won't let them come down, and then disappears. You're on their own now, Or Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter, talks about an eagle stirring up her nest, that when the time comes for the eagles to get out of the nest, she'll take out the lamb's wool and the rabbit's fur, make it prickly in there, and they've got to exercise their wings, and they're getting ready to fly. There comes a time when you're supposed to get out there and fly on your own. Now, times have changed in a way. When I went off to college in 1961, my mother said, "You're on your own now." I'm 17 years old.
She didn't expect you to be back.
All right. And then when I got married, she said, "No, you're welcome to come back anytime. Don't think you can come back here and live, though." Is forcing you to make sure that marriage works. Now, I can only think of one time in the Bible where it says kids are supposed to leave the home altogether, and that's when God said, repeated 4 times in the Bible, "For this cause a man shall leave father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two become one flesh." So when you get married, you're supposed to be able to provide for your own family and be independent. Now, times have changed today with economy, and sometimes parents need additional help in the home. And I see examples where I say, this young man lives at home with his parents, and it's a good thing because they have a huge house, and they kind of need a little bit of oversight, and he remains single, and it makes sense for him to stay in a section of the house, and they get along really well. So I can't say there's a policy that applies to every situation. But I think for the most part, the parent's job is to train your child to go off on their own, and for the self-esteem of the person, they're going to feel better. They're going to relate better to their peers if they're functioning on their own. Now, what happens when parents have a child who won't leave and isn't independent? I think the parents have to evaluate whether this child is capable of functioning on their own. If they are capable, then the parents got to toughen up a little bit.
Exercise a little tough love.
A little tough love, and say, look, if you're going to stay here, here's the rent, and here's how you're going to pay for your own way, and not make it too easy to stay at home, and let them know, hey, we appreciate you, we love you, come back and visit us, but don't stay.
Well, it's good stuff, Bob. We're about out of time, but what we're going to do, we're going to come back next week because I want to go through, I've got several more questions. This is really good stuff. I've really enjoyed it. So, folks, you're listening to The Worry-Free Retirement. We're going to be back next week to continue our discussion on difficult decisions and decision fatigue, not only in the financial world, but also in the world of Christians. So, good stuff coming your way next week. But between now and then, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.